Lights off.
Flashlight on.
Then it's time for the creepover. Hello and welcome to the Creepover, the weekly creepy slumber party podcast you never knew you needed. My name is Allie.
And my name is Catherine, and we're your ghastly hosts. So pull up a sleeping bag, your favorite treat, and get ready to scream like a girl.
Hey, Catherine.
It's celebration week.
It's my birthday
It's celebration week.
I'll be 28 by the time everyone hears this.
Oh my god!
I know. I made it out of the 27 club.
Almost. One more day.
Oh, yeah.
One day more. One
God.
more dawn.
I just wrap myself in bubble wrap. We have a ton of it down in the garage. Maybe I should do so. Yeah. Be careful down these stairs. Mm-hmm. Yeah. These stairs, we have pretty dangerous stairs up in our attic.
The stairs leading to the mystery shack are lethal. I have fallen down them twice.
Really fallen.
Really fallen.
Down.
The first time, I thought it was curtains for Catherine. It was terrifying.
End of show.
Slipped on the very top step. It was
alone
a cartoon.
in the house.
Alone in the house. A cartoon tumbled to the bottom of them.
It was funny because our dog went and was like, "You good? Okay, bye." But she was crying.
Cleo did check on me.
She checked on you, but...
And I felt like a 4-year-old child again when you skin your knee and you get a boo-boo. And I reached out to her with both arms and I said, Cleo.
And she promptly turned around.
It
and
was
went
a
in the
lot of
other
emotion
direction.
for her to
I feel like it
handle,
was a lot for
but I
her.
appreciated that she just checked to be sure that
Yes.
I was conscious.
She's with her other mom right now, and we miss her very much.
Oh my God. Cleo is currently at Camp Ariana.
Mm-hmm.
Having a grand old time.
I'm sure she is. But we honestly, I never thought we'd miss her this much.
I miss her so much.
We keep going Cleo.
Oh. She sleeps in a little black bed beside Allie's bed, and Cleo is all black. So most of the time when you peer into Allie's room, it's just this big black blob with 2 glowing eyes occasionally.
Yes,
So I've caught myself so many times popping up being like, "Hi, Cleo," and I'm just addressing a bed. Oh,
so sad.
I miss our doctor.
I know.
When I open the fridge, when I open the back door to the patio, I expect her to go ching, 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 ching. Give me a frozen green bean, Mom, but she's not there. Anyway. Celebration week. We just celebrated our 1-year wedding anniversary.
Yes, thank you all for such nice comments.
I know.
And
thank you for the nice comments on
made
Instagram.
our heart so happy.
We celebrated with a spooky-ooky dinner at a delightful inn downtown that
Yes. Good Italian
definitely
food.
looked haunted. Our server seemed a little harried, so we didn't want to bother him with inquiries about hauntings.
Yeah, he didn't seem like the type that would enjoy that conversation.
Right.
He probably would have participated, but then he'd be like, "These weird ass girls," you know.
You
get
had
that vibe.
We can be normal.
Yeah,
we don't have to bring up the
normal,
hauntings.
Yes.
So we were.
So, do you want to announce our topic? Because I am very excited about it.
You all, this week we're continuing our
Big Daddy.
Yes, it's a big daddy. We are continuing to cover topics that our patrons suggested over at the Blanket Fort. And this was a suggestion by the amazing Celine. We're going to be talking about MK Ultra.
I'm so excited. This is the conspiracy theory that was not a conspiracy theory.
It is all true, and it is all
really fucked.
Horrifying.
Real fucked. It's MK Ultra hot because we are in an attic that is uninsulated. Uninsulated?
Yeah,
Not
Allie was singing a little
insulated.
ditty right before we recorded, singing MK Ultra Hot.
That's what's happening. I'm already sweating, and I know there are 20 pages of notes for Catherine, so...
Jason's over there sweating. Jason, what a beautiful rainbow hockey mask you're wearing.
Oh my...
It's Pride Month, everybody!
Oh my God! What if he takes off his mask because he's so hot? What's underneath?
Reveal your secrets. You don't have to, Jason.
Yeah.
It hasn't been Mrs. Voorhees this whole time. You don't think?
We don't know.
Okay. No, but it is.
It feels like Jason.
It is Pride Month, everybody, and we also want to wish a very happy Pride to our listeners. I know this can be, as with all things, a tumultuous time, and if you haven't come out, or you don't feel comfortable with the label, or you don't feel safe coming out, those are all things that I know I can relate to. There was a huge chunk of my life where I didn't really feel safe being able to come out, and we just want to let you know that we see you. We see our more quiet
and
members.
We love you.
We see our loud and bombastic listeners, and we love you all, and you are all so loved and valid, and
we adore you.
We adore you. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, I mean, period.
Okay, so before we get into this week's episode, I do have a little bit of an update on 2 episodes ago when we were talking about the wonderful.
Can I keep that in?
Sure. Do as you wish. The wonderful world of body disposal.
Oh, yeah.
I took those marbles out of my mouth. Crash, wonderful patron over on the Blanket Fort, let us know in the Discord, quote, "You can, in fact, donate your organs and then your body to science, and they will do the cremation for you. Your loved ones will get your ashes within about 6 to 8 months after your departure from this world at no cost to you." So this was following up on our speculation of if you could donate your organs and your body, how that would all pan out. And Crash very helpfully provided this information. And
Crash, you're just coming through with all the goods.
Yes, he was totally right. Not to mention a total hero for being a donor himself. And this led me to a little bit more of a deep dive on organ donation, plus donating your body to science. And I found a really helpful article provided by the Land Canal Medical Center in Pennsylvania, which says, quote, "When you're a body donor, your whole body is donated to medical science at no cost to you or your family. The only cost you have is medical and funeral expenses, which are minimized with whole body donation.
Really?
You're not having to buy that giant ass coffin that's just going to go in the ground.
Yeah,
that
makes sense.
It is a little known fact that you can donate your entire body and you can donate your organs, thereby potentially benefiting dozens of living people while also benefiting generations to come. And there's a huge need for organ donation. According to Donate Life America, there are currently over 100,000 people in the U.S. right now awaiting an organ transplant, and 20 people die each day because the organ they need isn't donated in time. And when you donate your organs, eyes, and your tissues, you can save and or heal over 75 lives. Think how fucking cool that is.
I have a personal experience with that of a friend who passed away very, very young. And the person who got her heart wrote this amazing letter. And I mean, it just stuck with me for so long. And at a very young age, I knew I was so passionate about it. And she saved a lot of people. And this mother now gets to be with her children, and it's
Allie,
I know we can't
stop.
I can't
my God.
We cried all last time. But I'm very passionate about it, and if you haven't, it's pretty easy to get it changed on your license anytime you go to renew.
Yeah, or you can go online. It's a really easy process, and I'm bringing this up because when surveyed, 95% of Americans are in favor of being a donor, but only 58% of Americans are actually registered, which is still good. More than half. That's amazing.
That's way more. Actually, that's way more than I thought.
I know it's one of those things where you're like, oh, well, yeah, I'll be an organ donor, but like you just don't get around to it. And it's generally super easy to do, at least here in the US. That's the only way that I'm familiar with. But I became registered when I got my driver's license. When I moved here to Oregon and got my new license, I made sure that I was registered. One-stop shop at the DMV. Nobody wants to go there twice, I know. But if you'd like more info and resources, you can check that out at donatelife.net, which I'll link in the show notes. So donating your body to science is a separate process from organs, and you can often find an anatomy department at a local medical institution that would be thrilled to have your body. And also good to note, the Mayo Clinic encourages folks not to be worried about age when it comes to full body donation. So, you know, even if you kick it at the ripe old age of 100 and your organs might not be the most helpful, your body still might be.
The tissue and all of that.
Well, just, to study different effects on aging, all sorts of exciting, interesting things. I'm nerding out. So Mayo Clinic also does state that in some circumstances, you might not be eligible for some of their whole body donation programs specifically. So there might be certain programs that you can't do both, but sometimes you can. So it's a great idea just to check with a place you'd like to donate your body to science to. Make sure that it's going to the best use possible. And that's a little body donation PSA.
Thank you, Catherine.
Yes. And thank you again to Crash for following up on that.
Thanks,
I'm so glad that
dude.
we have an answer. We were just wildly speculating 2 episodes ago. Okay, so a quick little note that if you haven't joined us on Patreon, it's a grand old time at the Creepover Blanket Fort. You'll have access to the Discord, our Creepover vaults of over 60 original episodes, Patreon exclusive bonus episodes. We're going to be doing more celebrity ghost encounters this month. Desktop wallpapers, polls, our back catalog of audio and video witch pleases, our creepy glow-in-the-dark sticker, and this month we are going to be Creepover live streaming I Know What You Did Last Summer.
You have no idea how excited I am. It's one of my favorites. And we just started a book club in our Discord. So if you're into that, come join us.
Yeah, we're going to be reading Salem's Lot by Stephen King. So
You know you want to.
Yes, please join us. We're going to be doing our discussion in mid-July. So it's one of those book clubs where we're going to give you ample time to read the material, really enjoy it, and then we're going to have a grand old discussion time.
Catherine was like, when do you think we should plan the first one? And I was like, I don't know, like 6 months? And you were like, what are you talking
We read a book every 6 months. Look, Salem's Lot is pretty hefty, so I'm giving a little extra time. It's also summer.
There's an audiobook too.
Yes, there's a wonderful audiobook. Also, we donate 15% of all the Patreon proceeds to the Equal Justice Initiative, a nonprofit that's doing tremendous work to provide legal representation to prisoners who may have been wrongly convicted of crimes, poor prisoners without effective representation, and others who may have been denied a fair trial. It's a great time at the Blanket Fort, so join us if you dare.
All right, Catherine.
Hi.
Are you ready to move on to Creeped Out?
I sure am, Allie. Take it away. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. I know what we're talking about this week. So a little intro music.
A little TikTok intro. So I got all this from The Guardian.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a hero of the week this time.
Hero of the week.
And this hero is named Haley Morinico.
Haley.
And sorry if I mispronounced their last name. So
Badass.
yes. So Haley had the face-off of a lifetime this past week.
Yeah, some people spend their Memorial weekends on a lake, cooking some barbecue, binging true crime. Not so with Haley.
So this story takes place in the suburban Bradbury in Southern California. So the family dogs are out in the backyard, and all of a sudden, a fucking full-size bear. Was it? Do you know what kind of bear it was?
It
kind
was
of looked like a
brown.
It was a brown bear.
It was a brown bear.
I should know. I know there's a rhyme or like a rule about bears. Like if they're a certain color, you do certain things.
Yeah, I knew this at one point.
Haley did not do any of this.
No, because Haley was a badass dog protector.
Yes. So the bear starts walking across their stone fence, which was kind of like a balance beam situation.
It was very impressive. Give that bear a gold medal for balance.
Yes. So
Well, and then she's there with her 2 cubs, right?
yeah.
Here's one thing that I've learned. A bear with her cubs is a lot more dangerous than a bear alone.
I mean, they call it
They're
mama
protective.
bear, going mama bear for a reason. So the dogs did what any good pup would do, and they started barking and going towards it to try to scare it off.
And there were a lot of dogs, right? I think there were at least 4.
There were
right?
4. I think there were 3 small dogs and 1 large, looked like a Rottweiler mix, maybe. I like my dog breeds. I could be wrong. But Haley fearlessly ran out at the exact same time, actually, that the bear had grabbed one of the
little
smaller
babies.
dogs. So Haley runs towards the bear, shoves it off the wall, and quickly, like it happens so fast, quickly gets all the dogs inside in the matter of like 3 seconds before the bear can even like figure out what happened, and safely got all the dogs inside.
It's wild. It looked like a very forceful boop, like a no.
Yeah.
Against the bear.
Yeah. So Haley, if you haven't seen this video, please go watch this video.
I feel like it blew up on TikTok.
Yes.
So, and you can also find it at the Guardian article, which we'll link below.
So Haley was quoted saying, honestly, the only thing I had on my mind was protect my dogs. Don't push bears and do not get close to bears. You do not want to get unlucky. I happened to come out unscathed.
I think Haley sprained one finger.
Yeah.
But yeah, a very good note. Extremely brave. And I think sometimes adrenaline just takes over when we're protective. I think maybe Haley was also in mama bear mode.
Right.
But yes, a nice PSA. Don't shove bears.
Don't shove bears.
Don't shove bears. We're not condoning the shoving of bears. But also, Haley, you're a badass.
I mean, if something comes after my dog, fair. Everything's fair.
Oh, well, I'm not saying don't shove bears because it's mean to the bears.
Don't shove bears.
Don't shove bears
because you will get fucked.
Yeah. They can get you.
They'll get you.
I've seen Grizzly Man. I know.
Oh, God, I know. Well, Haley, you are the hero of the week. Now, Catherine.
Hi.
You ready to move on to the conspiracy theory of a lifetime?
And stranger than fiction. And it really is stranger than fiction.
I mean, yeah.
Allie, what do you think when you hear MK Ultra?
Scary CIA people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that you introduced me to the wild world of stoner films, I think about the intro to Pineapple Express.
Yes.
When Bill Hader is under strict observation by Army generals as he smokes a joint.
Yes.
I think about 11 from Stranger Things.
Uh-huh.
And I think about a lot of LSD and a case that we're going to be bringing up a little later. But I have never actually toppled down the rabbit hole of MK Ultra. I think partially because I know it will make me really angry and sad. And guess what?
It did.
But I am also glad that I am more informed now. And my God, I can understand reading what we know factually happened through MK Ultra and becoming a bit of a conspiracy theorist. I really can see that. Or just becoming a little bit more paranoid.
Yes.
I was telling Allie at our anniversary dinner last night.
Because this is what we talk about all the time.
I think I was starting a sentence and I was saying something like, my God, if I worked at the CIA and our server walked up, and I was like, we're not talking conspiracy.
We would like the ravioli, please. Hi. Hello.
Can I have your cocktail menu? If I worked at the CIA during this time, or God knows, at any point, I think that just is going to kind of fuck up your life permanently regardless.
For sure.
You will always be pretty damn paranoid, and for good reason.
Yeah. Also, great name for a cocktail. MK Ultra.
Yes.
Right?
Well, when we open our own little spooky bungalow, our creepy doll cafe, we planned this whole thing out over on the Discord.
Wait, what did we name it?
What was it? You named it. Oh, no.
Cafe Dalle.
That was it.
I got myself.
Yeah, when we open Cafe Dalle, I will become a professional mixologist and make a whole list of spooky cocktail names.
I love it.
How's that sound?
Sounds amazing.
My favorite one, I'll call the Morticia. Naturally.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I like this. Brainstorming to come. Well, before we get into it, my sources for this topic are in the show notes, but I want to acknowledge a particular debt of gratitude to Stephen Kinzer, who wrote the book Poisoner in Chief, Sidney Gottlieb, and the CIA Search for Mind Control, as well as an article by the CBC entitled Brainwashed, The Echoes of MK Ultra by Michelle Shepard, Lisa Ellenwood, and Chris Oakey. Okay, now let's set the scene. It's 1953 in the USA. I Love Lucy is the top-rated show on TV. Perry Como is crooning on the radio. Dwight D. Eisenhower is president, and the country is in the midst of the Korean War. Cut to CIA headquarters. the Central Intelligence Agency was only 6 years old at this
No.
time. Yeah.
Seriously?
It was created after World War II when President Truman signed the National Security Act and was formed as a direct result of mounting tensions between the U.S. and the USSR after World War II, aka the beginning of the Cold War. So this is kind of tie into some of the topics that have come up recently. And when we talked about the Cuban Missile Crisis and the assassination of JFK, you'll see little bits pop up here that all connect to what was going on during the 50s and 60s.
Wasn't it a quote that Kennedy wanted to scatter the whole CIA to the wind or something like that?
Yeah.
Something along those lines?
I think for him it was more personal, but I can also understand why you would wanna.
Yeah, I'm sure after this one, I'm going to be like, Kennedy, you were right. Wrong about a lot of things, but you were right about this one.
In the early 50s, the CIA was hugely concerned with two topics. First, that the USSR now had their own nukes. And second, the rumor that Soviet, North Korean, and Chinese governments were using mind control on prisoners of war during the Korean War.
Here's the thing. Torture tactics are pretty much mind control. You can get anyone to say anything with the amount of torture.
Yeah, and we'll get into torture, the efficacy of torture. It's not.
I was like, the ethics of torture. Of that?
Yeah, it's not. But if there's one word that kind of encapsulates the whole vibe at the CIA during this time, it would be paranoia. They were so concerned about communists and moles and people taking them down from the inside and people getting control of their soldiers and somehow turning them into killing machines with no brains of their own. And of course, this was America, so the CIA couldn't be outdone by their communist foes. So they were dead set on developing their own mind control techniques. Ultimately, they wanted to develop and perfect a truth serum that would allow them to successfully interrogate Soviet spies. They also loved the idea of using mind control techniques to influence foreign leaders they disagreed with, like Fidel Castro, who the CIA just couldn't get enough of. Really, in the ideal universe, the CIA wanted to create the ultimate Manchurian candidate. Allie, have you ever seen The Manchurian Candidate?
No. Is this like the sleeper agent situation?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, basically. So there are two versions. There's the original from the 60s and then a remake from the aughts. Which one do you think I'm more familiar with?
The 60s.
Yeah. I'm most familiar with the OG version, which stars a young Angela Lansbury in a role like you have never seen before. She is evil. Plus Frank Sinatra and Janet Leigh of Psycho fame. It's mwah!
Let's do it. Let's watch it.
Right? Maybe we can even make it a Keep the Lights On. Essentially, without giving away too much of the movie plot, a Manchurian Candidate would be the perfect human tool of the CIA. Someone who could be trained to kill, assassinate, operate as a covert agent by means of brainwashing, but who would have no conscious awareness or memory of those directives.
Oh my God, I was right. I was like right on the money there.
So as opposed to a normal sleeper agent, which is someone who's fully aware that they're acting as a double agent.
See, I thought a sleeper agent was like they don't kick in until there's a trigger word.
Right, but in this case, they would be an unconscious sleeper agent. Not unconscious like they're sleeping the whole time, literally, but like they aren't actually aware that there's been some training subconsciously in their brain.
I thought that was what a sleeper agent was.
I think the term is used for sleeper agents who like go about, they know that they have a directive, but they don't activate essentially or do what they've been told to do. They're just going about their normal business or they've infiltrated society.
I thought it was exactly what you said the first time, like the you don't know, and that's why you're a sleeper agent.
Right.
So then like once you're hit the word or whatever, they snap into it, but they don't know about their past history.
So it's more just a distinction between someone who's conscious of it, which is the only type of sleeper agent that actually exists, or someone who is unconscious, who's been subconsciously wired to do this shit. And that's what the CIA wanted to do.
Okay.
Because it's perfect, right?
And I didn't know I thought a sleeper agent was that they did not know.
Right. I think it's more like they're sleeping on what their mission is. They don't just go directly into the field and do it. They keep up appearances.
Well,
maybe they're a double agent. They're a mole.
Super wrong then.
No. You're half right.
Okay.
But this is like the CIA's wet dream, right?
Right.
Unflinching obedience, plus the inability to snitch if they're caught and tortured because they don't consciously know. So once
Right.
they're deactivated, they don't remember. Perfection. And boy, howdy was the CIA in pursuit of perfection because they were fucking paranoid during this era. And they were desperate to put out the red scourge of communism. And you know what desperation can sometimes lead to?
Really fucked up decisions?
Yeah, some wildly unethical decisions. I have warned you before, but buckle up because we are about to get into some infuriating details. MK Ultra was officially begun by order of CIA Director Allen Dulles in April of 1953 and headed by a real sicko of a man named Sidney Gottlieb. It would run for almost a decade before being reduced and then moved to Canada in 1964. Further cut back. Yes, I didn't either. I knew nothing about these Canadian experiments, and it's horrific. We'll get into some of them.
Oh, God.
It was further reduced in scope in 67 and then completely stopped in 73 when almost all records of the project were destroyed by order of the CIA director then, Richard Helms.
That is 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
I really, I think people think about it and they're like, oh, maybe late 60s, early 70s. But it was 2 decades. I mean,
it really kind of bled out on the corners, too. Like, some of these experiments were starting even in the late 40s. Because so many of these records were destroyed, we only have a very partial understanding of what went down during this time.
Which is so scary because they probably got rid of all the scariest parts.
Yeah. Or, the things that worked and were classified.
Right.
We know a lot about things that didn't work. Honestly, from what I can tell, this whole thing was a wash and completely pointless and pseudoscience, and it's fucking enraging. It didn't achieve anything, and it harmed the lives of hundreds, maybe thousands of people. We do know that there were more than 150 research projects, and I use that term lightly, that took place under MK Ultra. According to Stephen Kinzer, whose book I have referenced, MK Ultra was, quote, a continuation of the work begun in World War II era Japanese facilities and Nazi concentration camps on subduing and controlling human minds. And that is not hyperbole. The CIA actually secretly brought in Nazis who had tortured and experimented on the Third Reich's Jewish and marginalized victims to work for the United States.
Fuck this country.
Some of these sadistic, shitty people had worked directly with the infamous Dr. Mengele. And you know what the CIA thought? We're going to make these war criminals and morally depraved humans our teachers and learn from them how better and more efficiently to perform experiments on humans in a monstrously unethical and illegal way. What could go wrong?
It also kind of seems like they could have been like, see, we didn't start it. We're just learning from other people.
God.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
God.
It drives me nuts that at this time, there was a committee on un-American activities, just ruining the lives of people who were thought to be communist sympathizers. And so many people who had fought in World War II in good faith trying to take down Nazis. And meantime, your government is expunging their records and bringing them over to the U.S. and employing them and giving them money. You want to talk about something that is whatever that concept means, un-American. I think that's it, man. So
yeah, I'm going to try to be funny this episode, but I don't know
It's a
how
little
funny
hard.
I can be throughout.
sorry, everyone. This is the angry episode.
We'll just call it that. The angry episode.
The angry episode. This recruitment was called Project Paperclip because the CIA essentially was scrubbing out these Nazis' old records and paperclipping new bogus paperwork atop their sordid past so that they could make use of their expertise. They brought them to Fort Detrick in Maryland, where they learned how to torture unwitting test subjects with the use of sarin gas. And as we'll soon see, there are many parallels between the evil shit Nazis pulled and the evil shit the CIA would pull throughout the next 2 decades.
Oh, I'm scared.
The general idea behind many of these experiments was the CIA wanted blank slates. So they had this idea that you could take a human brain, completely erase all its former wirings, reprogram it, and control it. So they were focusing first on methods that would erase the original brain and make it pliable for the CIA to fill with all the info and directives that they wanted to use. They essentially wanted to create robot agents.
Right.
To which I say, why don't you spend your time and our tax money making actual motherfucking robots if that's what you want? Because humans are not robots. And you shouldn't treat them that way.
Right. Or like, we work more on the UN peace and all that kind
Yes.
of stuff. So
I'm not saying you should create robots either, because we're going to be taken down by AI eventually.
yeah, totally.
But Sidney Gottlieb thought you could treat humans like robots. According to Kenzer, Gottlieb, quote, wanted to create a way to seize control of people's minds, and he realized it was a two-part process. First, you had to blast away the existing mind. Second, you had to find a way to insert a new mind into that resulting void. We didn't get too far on number 2, but he did a lot of work on number 1. As I said, much of the documentation of MKUltra was destroyed, but one surviving document from 1955 details a list of 17 objectives of MKUltra.
17?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I will share a few of them here.
That's ambitious, when you're like, I have a project and I want to prove like one thing, and you do like a whole psychological experiment. Mm-hmm. But they were like, let's go for 7 fucking teen.
Yes, they were very nerdily excited about a lot of evil pseudoscience.
Yes.
I don't know what to tell you. So MKUltra claimed to be in pursuit of, first, substances which will promote illogical thinking and impulsiveness to the point where the recipient would be discredited in public. So as you can imagine, something to slip Fidel Castro, something to slip people in the Kremlin, maybe if they could get in there and make foreign leaders act different or make bad decisions. Substances which increase the efficiency of mentation and perception. So an attempt to create the superhuman robot agent.
Right, like susceptible to...
Well, in this case,
right?
They wanted to find a substance that would kind of make humans extremely intelligent and perceptive. To make super CIA agents. Substances which will enhance the ability of individuals to withstand privation, torture, and coercion during interrogation, and so-called brainwashing. Materials and physical methods which will produce amnesia for events preceding and during their use. Physical methods of producing shock and confusion over extended periods of time and capable of surreptitious use. Substances which alter personality structure in such a way the tendency of the recipient to become dependent upon another person is enhanced.
Okay.
A knockout pill, which can be surreptitiously administered in drinks, food, cigarettes, and an aerosol, which will be safe to use and provide a maximum of amnesia. So we're trying to find ways to control people, to roofie them, to make them dependent on other people, all the tactics of an abuser in one great location here at the CIA.
Yes.
All sounds healthy and great, Sydney. I'm sure these substances and these methods will never be abused by a secret government agency that has no safeguards in place, and that the means by which you discover their efficacy will be totally safe, consensual, and cause no harm.
Right?
I'm sure that's the case.
Right.
Right, Sydney? Well, shockingly wrong. To start, what were these substances that the CIA was so wild about? And what were the methods that Project MKUltra used? Well, to begin with, MKUltra experimented with a plethora of drugs. And one technique, they would hook up a subject to an IV of a barbiturate in one arm and an amphetamine in the other arm.
Christ!
They would run the barbiturate first, and right when the subject seemed like they were going to pass out, they would run the amphetamine. And as you can imagine, the test subject would start like babbling incoherently and acting erratically. And it would be at that stage that they would try to get answers from the subject.
So was this on imprisoned people?
We're going to get into all the people they experimented on.
You're like, oh, just take a seat. Just,
But yes, imprisoned people were one of them. If they're marginalized and don't have someone to advocate for them, you'd better believe the CIA took advantage of them.
Cocks.
I don't think I've ever heard you use that like derogatorily. Fucking cocks. They also conducted experiments using mescaline, which was another method they'd learned from the Nazis, heroin, morphine, alcohol, and more. But perhaps the drug most associated with the idea of MK Ultra, certainly as for me,
Good
would be
old LSD.
That's right, lysergic acid diethylamide, aka LSD,
AKA acid.
Acid. AKA, why is the purple spotted tarantula sitting in a peach tree that's growing from that elephant's trunk? And why can I taste the color sour?
What is this?
It's my LSD song.
Oh my God, that was incredible. I was like, for sure, an old Beatles song. That's the first thing that went in my mind.
Yeah, that's the bridge of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
Sounds like it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it said that at the start of MK Ultra, Sidney Gottlieb arranged for the CIA to pay $240,000 on what was essentially the world's supply of LSD, enough to dose at least half of the entire U.S. population.
Because at that time, it was probably like $1 million, right?
I think $240,000 with inflation, I looked it up, was like $7.5 million on just truckloads of LSD. In early days, the CIA was wildly optimistic about the use of LSD to get them that robot agent they wanted. And many of them saw the drug as, quote, the secret that was going to unlock the universe.
Instead, people just made really good music.
This is the beauty. LSD was developed, I guess, like extracted and chemically produced in the 30s. Mm-hmm. But it was introduced to America by the CIA. Like, it was not, you could not easily find it in the US before the CIA did this.
Okay.
Now, Sidney Gottlieb believed that LSD could possibly be slipped to high-ranking officials, foreign leaders, in a way that would affect their decision-making in important meetings, as well as the content of their public speeches. So, slip Castro some LSD right before he goes out and make a speech, and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
In some cases, the CIA administered LSD to willing volunteers. And it's important to note that in a lot of these cases, both where there are volunteers and not volunteers, the CIA was working under different names. Like, the folks who got this LSD didn't know it was from the CIA. It was just a project at Stanford University or something that was funded by an apparent nonprofit, but it was really the CIA. So, poet Allen Ginsberg, Ken Kesey, author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Well, I was going to say, Allen Ginsberg's birthday is tomorrow, too.
Oh, my God. Well, happy birthday, Ginsberg. We're talking about you today.
Yeah.
And Robert Hunter, who was known for his association with the Grateful Dead. Mm-hmm. All of these I know are huge surprises. They volunteered to take LSD in these early programs.
And I thought about it, and I was like, you probably, at this time, and how, like, counterculture was starting to come about, you could probably find some willing participants and not have to use people that did not consent to this.
Right. Well, it's an interesting chicken and the egg question, because a lot of people credit the CIA with unwittingly starting the counterculture because they were providing LSD. And their whole idea was, we'll be able to use this to control people's minds, which is stupid, because what LSD instead is, it opens your mind. It releases a lot of times your perception of self. It makes you anti-authoritarian and more peaceful and zen in some cases. It opens different neural pathways in others.
I am all for microdosing LSD or mushrooms. I find it's helped a lot of people I know.
Well, luckily, it's finally being researched and legalized or decriminalized now. And a lot of the reason it got such flack and it was so stigmatized and hard to get was because of the shit that MK Ultra pulled. And that makes me mad.
Yes.
But this does at least give me great satisfaction that all those anti-commie suits at the CIA, these straight-laced America First folks, were, unbeknownst to them, empowering the forces behind US's counterculture. They were in part responsible for the beatnik culture and the hippies that would follow, and that they would come to despise, all because they gave some folks some free acid.
God, that is very bizarre, and I had no idea.
But unfortunately, a huge amount of these LSD experiments took place without the subject's informed consent or knowledge, which happens to be illegal not only in the US, but on a global scale, and was in direct violation of the Nuremberg Code, which the US had promised to follow in a post-World War II society. But the CIA, I guess, was above the sanctity of human rights because America.
Yeah.
Beginning in 1953, the CIA administered LSD to fellow CIA employees, military personnel, doctors, government agents, and members of the general public, all without their knowledge or at least fully informed consent. But they especially focused on prisoners, mental patients, drug addicts, and sex workers, those most marginalized by society, or as one MK Ultra agent put it, quote, people who could not fight back.
Jesus Christ.
One notable prisoner that the CIA tested on was Whitney Bulger, an organized crime boss who claimed that his forced experiments resulted in hallucinations of, quote, living nightmares and even blood coming out of the walls, guys turning to skeletons in front of me. I saw a camera change into the head of a dog. I felt like I was going insane. In one of the most egregious examples of LSD testing, the project administered LSD to one mental patient in Kentucky for a total of 174 consecutive days. Can you imagine?
I'm
Just
so
tripping
mad.
for
I'm so mad.
half a year. Even when the testing was volunteering, the CIA pushed safety and health measures to the extreme, subjecting one group of 7 volunteers to LSD for 77 consecutive days. And this happened to take place right in my hometown of Lexington, Kentucky.
Great. Great. Where are the CIA headquarters?
Virginia.
Does anyone know? Because it's like,
It's in Virginia. I think.
how do you drive to work? You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
How do you drive to work and how do you sleep at night?
Well,
Two great questions.
but I just mean like it's like so undercover. Like,
very
you can't
high security,
expose if
I would
you-
imagine. I mean, we know where the Pentagon is, that there's just really fucking high security.
My grandparents worked at the Pentagon, and that's where they met.
You said your grandfather had to walk in with a briefcase chained to his arm, right?
My grandpa knew some shit that I wish he didn't pass away. I mean, of course, I wish he didn't pass away just
Yeah.
in general, but so while I was so young, because I had lots of questions.
Yeah.
And he loved us enough that he would probably tell us. Yeah.
Well, known heroin addicts were taken advantage of and bribed with the offer of more heroin if they would first subject themselves to LSD experiments, which now psilocybins and psychedelic drugs are actually, I think there's some evidence that they can help break addiction to other substances.
Yep.
So if you had actually done your shit right, CIA, you could have helped some people, but no. And in a now infamous experiment, the CIA set up controlled brothels in San Francisco where the rooms had one-way mirrors, and they filmed sessions of men unknowingly on LSD having sex with sex workers to later review and study.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm sure that was just for studying purposes, not a fucking...
Voyeurism?
Yeah.
The name of this operation was
Creepy-ass fucking dudes.
Operation Midnight Climax.
Stop it.
You cannot make this shit up.
Okay. I was going to say the angry episode was the title, but that is most certainly the title of this episode.
The CIA intentionally chose test subjects that they believed would be too humiliated to talk about the events. They paid sex workers to bring them to their fake brothels.
God, this is the fucking scariest shit.
It's terrifying. Afterwards, post-sex, they directed the sex workers to attempt to pry personal and sensitive information out of the men. So you can see how this works with, in a lot of CIA operations, female agents especially were used to have sex with guys and then get information out of them because dudes want to talk up their great values and worth.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing.
They don't need to be on LSD for that to happen.
Makes you unpredictable. If you would just get them pretty damn drunk, I feel like you'd have a better luck of like inhibitions being down opposed to just someone being like, I see a purple dinosaur. And you're just like, wait, what?
Right. Like ostensibly the idea is we want to see if like we slipped this to people and then we had our CIA agents have sex with them, and then afterwards would they be more easily be able to get sensitive information out of them. That was ostensibly what they were after, but I don't buy it. It said that George Hunter White, a federal narcotics officer and covert CIA operative who headed Midnight Climax, was said to watch through the double-sided glass, through the one-way glass. What is that called? He was
one-way mirror?
Yeah.
Two-way mirror.
Two-way mirror.
No. What is it?
He was looking through the secret glass, and
secret glass.
They said that he would sit there watching them have sex while drinking martinis and sitting on a portable toilet because he didn't want to have to leave the room to piss.
I'm really fucking disturbed by this.
You want to hear something more disturbing?
No, I really don't, but go for it.
Well, White, who is definitely an actual nightmare human, would later reflect, quote, I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun, fun, fun. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest?
I want to throw my microphone across the room.
Some sadistic psychopaths are serial killers who are imprisoned, and some turn into George Hunter White.
Yeah.
And I will just let
our president, not right now, but a little while ago.
The former one. So I'll just let that quote stand on its own. In other instances, employees of the CIA and U.S. military personnel who were just suspected of possibly being double agents were slipped LSD without their knowledge or consent, and then subjected to interrogation under bright lights, threatened with the prospect of having their trip extended if they didn't divulge their secrets, which they may not have even had. Now, as you might imagine, all of this was highly fucking illegal and resulted in the long-term debilitation and deaths of several subjects. And the one story I most associate with MKUltra, so this was the story I hinted at earlier, and also an example of this is why we can't have nice things. It's partially the reason LSD and therapeutic psilocybin were demonized for so long, until very recently, thank God. The story was that of a man named Frank Olson, an Army chemist who was covertly given LSD by his CIA supervisor, which triggered a deeply depressive state in Olson and resulted in his apparent death by suicide when he jumped out of a 13th story hotel room in New York City.
God, this is the one that I know about, but don't really, all I know is that basic.
Yeah, my sister said that there's a documentary or maybe a series about it on Netflix that I would really like to check out.
Me too.
But there are theories that this jump may not have been a suicide, a position that Olson's family holds, and honestly, one that I hold too.
Well, yeah, when you're given something without your consent that affects your mind, it's not your choice to have a reaction to
Even
that.
if it was a death by suicide, that was all triggered by something that he had no control over. Yes, but it could have been more sinister even than that.
Right.
So Olson had reportedly approached his bosses just days before his death and expressed concerns about the ethics of CIA operations, and he asked to resign from his position at the CIA. Olson's family believed that he was murdered by the CIA, and in pursuit of this theory, Olson's body was exhumed in 1994. The medical examiner determined that cranial injuries Olson had sustained indicated that he had been knocked unconscious before falling out the window or being thrown out of the window. And this examiner deemed his death to be a homicide. Even before that determination, in 1975, Frank Olson's family received a $750,000 settlement from the government, which is pennies, as well as formal apologies from the CIA director at the time and President Gerald Ford. But these apologies, it seemed, were pretty paltry and threadbare and like the least amount of responsibility taken.
Right. Like we know now, like the CIA ordered hits. Like that's not a conspiracy theory.
No, that's what they do.
Yes.
And so as recently as 2012, Olson's family filed a wrongful death suit against the federal government. Unfortunately, it was thrown out partly due to the fact that they'd already received a settlement, which that we'll get into later is just one of a huge string of victims who were never apologized to or compensated after this happened.
Because they're also like, we can't tell you what actually happened, but here's the money.
Or just, well, we can't prove that your problems were caused by people scrambling your brain and messing with you. That couldn't possibly be it. Okay.
I'm about to throw this mic around. Even Jason's mad.
Going back to the heyday of MK Ultra, though, another CIA operative was slipped LSD in his morning coffee, which led to a psychotic break in which he ran all across Washington, D.C., claiming to see monsters in the windows of every single car that passed him. Terrifying stuff. But did the CIA give a damn? Or did they stop their experiments after they realized they could be fatal?
No.
Well, of course not, because we had to beat those damn communists. They were the real evil sons of bitches. In the end, all this suffering, death, and psychological torment was pointless. MK Ultra operatives ultimately dismissed the use of LSD, claiming that it was too unpredictable in its results.
No shit. That would probably take actually doing it on like 5 people. And that would be...
It could probably just take, like, talking to the scientists who knew what they were doing and not CIA agents who were not qualified to do this.
Or the person who developed it, which I think he lived... like, into his 90s and microdosed his whole life.
Really?
I think I'm right about that. Message me if
I
I'm
believe
wrong, or I will come back next time with the corrections. But I really think he was known
for
microdosing and like living like a very healthy, active life until his 90s.
Interesting.
Could be wrong.
Another method that Project MK Ultra employed was hypnosis. Early goals of these experiments were to achieve, quote, hypnotically induced anxieties, hypnotically increasing ability to learn and recall complex written matter, and the study of the relationship of personality to susceptibility to hypnosis. Mm-hmm. And surprise, surprise, this didn't really lead to a lot either.
I'm just shaking my head. I have no words.
Well, as if MK Ultra weren't violating enough human rights, they also created secret detention centers outside of the U.S. and places under U.S. military control, including Japan, Germany, and the Philippines, where they subjected enemy agents and people deemed to be expendable to experimentation and torture, including LSD use, sensory isolation, electroshock, and extreme temperatures.
I want to move. Please.
Can we
leave?
We're different from the Nazis. We never did anything but like this fucking bullshit.
Bullshit.
Sorry, everyone. It's the mad episode. We warned you. What? If you're not angry, you're not paying attention, right?
I mean, yes.
Okay. But perhaps the most notable country to which the U.S. exported its heinous experiments was Canada. Beginning in the late 50s, the CIA moved the bulk of its operations from the U.S. to Montreal, in particular to McGill University, where Scottish-born American psychiatrist Donald Ewan Cameron was recruited to conduct experiments, known very originally as the Montreal experiments.
Clever name.
So it's worth noting that Cameron, I don't think, especially initially, was aware that this was being funded by the CIA. Again, they were using a cover of some sort of like medical organization that was giving a grant, but they were essentially paying him $500,000 a year to do this shit. There. Cameron experimented on test subjects with LSD, paralytic drugs, and electroconvulsive therapy at 30 to 40 times the normal power. Cameron was working under a concept he called psychic driving, during which he would place his subjects into drug-induced comas and play loops of repeated statements or noises that they would supposedly subconsciously absorb.
This is a goddamn nightmare.
It's horrifying.
It's so scary.
Evil scientists every which way you look. Even though many of the patients who came to Cameron for help were suffering from treatable mental health issues like postpartum depression, anxiety, some of those patients left with permanent issues like amnesia, incontinence, and even forgetting how to talk or forgetting basic life functions. And the real kicker is that Cameron had been a member of the Nuremberg Medical Tribunal, in the 40s.
Yeah, that whole do no harm thing. I don't know. I feel like that's an oath that you take.
Yeah, I think Cameron was just like not there for the day he took the Hippocratic Oath.
Apparently not.
He was also the first chairman of the World Psychiatric Association and president of the American Psychiatric Association and Canadian Psychiatric Association. So when folks advocate for better mental health and talk about a history of distrust with organizations or with psychiatry in general, there's a reason.
Yes.
This guy was the head of these lauded organizations, and he was performing highly unethical and fucked up experiments at the same time. But of course, because he held these positions, the patients who came to him trusted him based on his reputation. This was supposed to be the best of the best.
Of the best, yeah.
One such patient was a young woman named Phyllis Goldberg, who was admitted to the Allen Memorial Institute at McGill University, which was also just known as the Allen, for mild depression. There, she was subjected to Cameron's methods, including countless electroshock treatments. And afterwards, according to her family, she was never the same. She would cringe when someone would attempt to pat her head, which was a learned response from having wires hooked up to her for electroshock trauma. She stopped communicating with the family, and soon she couldn't perform even basic functions for herself.
This is too much. That's too much for me.
Are you going to be okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. It's just
deeply
when
upsetting.
You know, like, I would be that test subject back
Yeah.
then. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
just with all the mental health issues, you're just like, oh, that, if I was born in a different time, that would have been
100%.
me. Yeah, it's very scary.
According to Angela Bardosh, the daughter of Nancy Layton, Layton went to the Institute for mild depression in her teens and was subjected to 6 months of horrific treatments that resulted in her dealing with lifelong acute schizophrenia and a tremendous amount of suffering. Then there was Esther Schreier, a young pregnant mother who'd gone to the Institute for postpartum depression. Like so many others, she'd been drawn there by Cameron's reputation. And according to Lloyd Schreier, the baby that Esther was pregnant with when she was admitted into the Allen, people at the time considered Cameron to be godlike. And it certainly seemed like he had a god complex. And after a month of being subjected to Cameron's de-patterning, Esther was incontinent, she couldn't talk, and she even just had trouble swallowing. According to Lloyd, quote, when she woke from the sleep room, she didn't know who my father was. She didn't know it was her husband. I guess she didn't know anything. You know, she used to tell me she had to relearn everything. Over 6 months, all while pregnant, Esther was given 29 rounds of extreme electroshock treatments. And by the time she gave birth to Lloyd, she would later say that she couldn't remember how to perform any basic functions, including boiling water, let alone how to take care of a newborn baby. Esther luckily was able to relearn much of what she'd forgotten or lost at the Institute, but her life and Lloyd's life, who had been in the womb during all these experiments, were forever affected, and there were many other patients who did not recover and whose lives were permanently damaged. As recently as May 2018, families of these MKUltra survivors gathered to support each other and plan a class action lawsuit against provincial and federal governments and maybe even McGill University to be represented by lawyer Alan Stein. These relatives are demanding compensation for their injured family members, as well as an official apology from the Canadian government. As Marlene Levinson, the niece of Phyllis Goldberg, summed up, quote, like our loved ones making history for the wrong reasons, we are making history for the right reasons. We are their voices now.
Oh, God. Catherine.
I told you it would be rough and it would make you mad, and I think this is just the most infuriating part of it all. So, how did MKUltra's horrific practices finally come to light? Well, as I mentioned, experiments largely stopped in the U.S. in the early 60s when they were exported to Canada, and then they were curbed again in the late 60s. And then in the early 70s, a very public scandal hit the U.S., Watergate. Mm-hmm. And it was in the resultant panic about government corruption that then CIA Director Richard Helms had all of the MKUltra files that he knew of destroyed. The reason we still have some records is not only because of the brave victims of some experiments, but also because of a filing error. So around 20,000 documents survived because they'd been stored in error at a financial records building rather than at CIA headquarters. And these were discovered and investigated in 1977. There were...
Investigated by who, right? Because, like, or isn't
by Congress.
Because you know what I mean? Like, that's supposed to basically go to the CIA.
Right. Yeah, no, I know. So there was still, like, paltry evidence of what had gone on before this. And the New York Times caught wind and alleged in a December 1974 article that the CIA had been conducting these illegal experiments on U.S. citizens, which resulted in a formal investigation by the Church Committee, which was a committee set up by Congress, and then the Rockefeller Commission, which was set up by the executive branch.
Okay.
So that was their presidential commission. So there were two working to investigate what was going on.
That's where it kind of becomes hard for me because I'm like, I would want that to go to independent lawyers who are passionate about it, not someone who's also involved in the U.S. government and has vested interest of keeping it as, I mean, I know it's different, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'd much rather it be.
No. I do get that. I mean, I think there are at least enough. I think notoriously the FBI and CIA don't get along and can be antagonistic to each other. So
that's good. Yes. I like some balance there.
Well, the idea, which isn't always the case, right, is that we have these branches of government to keep things in check. But the CIA isn't supposed to be its own fucking branch of government. And it was definitely given a lot of power and just completely unchecked ability to do whatever the hell they wanted. So while I do think there were, some vested interests and propping up some things in the government, I think that there was enough public outrage that your job as a representative would be to represent the interests of your outraged constituents and yourself. Yeah, I think a lot of Congress people generally were like horrified that this had been going on.
Well, fucking because they could have been experimenting on.
Right. And many were, for all we know. It was just like a fucking free-for-all, man. They were like, don't go to that party and drink the punch. Like, they were literally just like slipping it in your Christmas party punch at your old CIA gathering, just like willy-nilly. I'm just picturing the CIA headquarters at this point, and folks are just bopping around, dropping stuff in people's coffee, just slipping it into Mark's sandwich.
It's so scary.
And putting it into Janet's creamer and being like, let's see what they do.
What happens. I'm like really hot from being up here, but like I feel like I'm sweating for different reasons, like multiple different reasons.
Yes. Well, a year after being formed, the Church Committee and the Rockefeller Commission made public to the U.S. that the CIA had, in fact, conducted these experiments, and they also acknowledged the death of Frank Olson. And Frank Olson's death, I feel like, has been so twisted. Like, the story that I got was there was this person who took LSD and it was so dangerous and it made him go so out of his mind that he threw himself out of a 13th story window. Not this person had been given LSD, which triggered a depressive state, and either in that depressive state he died by suicide, or he was so disgusted by what the CIA was doing and resigned that they figured they had to shut him up and murdered him. Like, that was the actual story. But I feel like his death was used to really demonize LSD as like, oh, it's so dangerous.
When it should have demonized our fucking government.
And don't get me wrong, like, LSD can potentially be dangerous. It can trigger some neurological problems and definitely shouldn't
responsibly.
Be. Yes, exactly. I think that the current track that we're on to have responsible medical professionals using this to help people with mental health and, like you said, microdosing, using magic mushrooms and psilocybins or like ketamine in a responsible way, all for that. But it's just absurd to me that the CIA hauled in all this LSD, was throwing it at, like, I just pictured, like, the next person who just walks down the hallway, they're like, hey, James, let's see what happens. Here's a cat. Let's give this cat some LSD. Yeah. And yet this government is the same one that turns around for a fucking war on drugs that we know is really just a war on black and brown people.
Yes, absolutely. Jesus. I just see it like making it rain money,
But making it rain with little LSD stickers.
Yeah.
And little tabs. Well, that bastard Sidney Gottlieb, the guy who headed this entire thing, he had retired from the CIA 2 years before the Church Committee. And when he was interviewed, he claimed to have very little recollection of what went down in MK Ultra. Gottlieb, I gotta say this. Go fuck yourself.
Yes, go fuck yourself.
The church committee concluded that, quote, prior consent was obviously not obtained from any of the subjects.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
You think?
I should say so. And in response to this conclusion, President Ford gave an executive order that required informed consent for drug experimentation on human subjects, which is a real low bar to set in 1976.
Fucking baseline shit. Like, oh, congratulations.
But here we are. I think I read, too, that this was just for drug experimentation, and it wasn't until a few years later that they added, well, actually, all experiments you have to have informed consent.
So, like, torture, they were still like, oh, that's fine.
Oh, we're still torturing people. So, yeah, God bless the USA.
I really hate people. This has made me just, like, have kind of a hate. Okay.
Everybody take a cool shower after this. It took even longer for the truth of MK Ultra to come to light in Canada. The infamous Dr. Cameron died in 1967 of a heart attack.
Good.
Hooray! And his family destroyed all records of his involvement with MK Ultra after his death. So sadly, we don't have...
You guys are shit too.
Yep. It was only in 1984 that the CBC shed light on Cameron's work at McGill University, revealing that the Canadian government was fully aware of his experiments and had even funded them to the amount of $500,000.
Oh my God.
In the end, the government settled out of court to pay $100,000 to each of Cameron's 127 victims. Though clearly, as we've established, there's still a call by the families of those victims for further amends, as well as a public apology, which, as far as I know, as of 2018, they still hadn't received.
Seems like an easy thing for you to do.
You would think. Well, that leads us to the ultimate question. What was the point of all of this? After MK Ultra came to the public's attention, the CIA would acknowledge that their tests were barely grounded in science. I mean, all of this was just wild speculation and pseudoscience headed by people who, it seems like, weren't even scientists themselves.
No.
They were just CIA operatives. And the agents who had conducted them were not professionally or scientifically qualified to do so.
Well, obviously.
Yeah,
I mean,
just
not
think about
obviously,
White
I guess,
sitting on a toilet drinking his martini, just watching people fuck.
Like,
what is scientific about that? Please tell me.
Something disgusting and took it to, like, the most disgusting level. That you brought a toilet in?
I know. And again, my tiny consolation is that these brothels in San Francisco, I'm just thinking a few years later to hate Ashbury and being like,
yep,
you created your own worst enemy.
Oh my God.
So MK Ultra's legacy also led to some highly unscientific resources used by the CIA, like the Human Resource Exploitation Training Manual, which is just as evil as it sounds. It was circulated in the 80s and meant to be used as a manual for kidnapping, torture, and murder. And as we're well aware of today, or should be, torture is an extremely shoddy way to get actual, truthful, and useful information out of people. And I would be so bold as to say that it is only defended by either the ignorant or sadists.
Yep.
As retired U.S. Army general and psychiatrist Stephen Xenakis observed about these methods, quote, the idea that people were going to produce truthful information, valid information in those states of mind has never, ever been established. You will just say whatever you can think of to get them to stop the torture. That doesn't mean you're going to reveal the truth.
No.
In the end, Gottlieb himself admitted that MK Ultra had been useless, but it impacted and harmed numerous lives, especially the most marginalized communities in the U.S. and Canada and other countries. And most of those folks never received compensation or an apology from our government. So, Allie, as we fairly regularly say on this show, the real creeped out is the world we're living in.
Oh, Catherine, that was such good coverage. I'm mad at everything right now But, like, I really appreciated you telling me the history.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Well, I'm really glad that I finally sat down and read about it. Because, like I said, it's one of those things I knew was going to make me infuriated.
Yes.
And it did just that. But
I mean,
it's something I think that we need to be aware of.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't happen again.
Yes.
Not that we have much control over what the fucking CIA does, but can at least elect representatives who hold people responsible. Investigatory committees like that are important.
Yes.
You know, like maybe we should be investigating what happened at the Capitol on January 6th that, you know, certain partisan Republicans just don't want to look into.
Yeah.
So strange that you wouldn't want to investigate people who are literally there to murder you, but okay, that's
Fine.
a whole other
Fine.
thing. Oh my God, angry episode.
Angry
Catherine has
episode.
I've just been jumping from soapbox to soapbox.
You know when you're like
raging,
angry and hot, and like when I get hot, I get angry too.
It is so hot up in the mystery shack. It's like 90 degrees.
I was telling Catherine, she always sees this panic that comes over me once it starts getting hot because we don't have AC in the house. And I said, I'm like Tina. I'm just like, ha, 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 from Bob's Burgers, obviously. Oh, Catherine, so good. Thank you for that. I know
Thank you for
that
listening.
was a lot of researching really tough stuff, and
Yeah.
you had to deal with that a lot more hours than we did. So,
Well, I know this was a rough one, everyone. So take care of yourself.
yes.
Eat a chocolate bar.
Oh my God.
Go on a run. Take a bath.
Do whatever you need to do.
Whatever helps you calm down after this ridiculous shit show. And just remember, the CIA is not your friend.
Nope.
Okay. And
All
don't
right.
drink punch at CIA parties.
Just bring your own drinks.
Mm-hmm.
So, Catherine,
Uh-huh.
are you ready to move on to Bump in the Night?
I sure am, Allie. Listeners, this is our 3-sentence horror story challenge, so please feel free to send yours in. Doesn't have to be exactly 3. Could be 1. Could be 33. Just don't send a novel.
33. We'll cap it at
33 short sentences.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So this week's story is a follow-up from listener Colin. Thank you, Colin. So if you remember back a few episodes, there was a certain story about some folks who had been buried alive in sand with only straws to breathe out of.
I loved this
And
story.
a cleanup crew was quickly approaching. Okay, well, here's part 2.
Oh my God.
The crew arrived a little after sunrise. They greeted each other in the parking lot, grabbing their gloves, bags, and all the items needed. They crested the dunes toward the ocean and began their cleanup. As the group started, a few patrons nearby chatted about how they missed their favorite Creepover podcast, as it had been a while since they'd had a show. Just then, the workers plucked a few straws from the sand and continued on. And then Colin has added, could there be more? Shrug emoji.
Colin! The saga continues! We want more! I loved our little shout out in the middle of your story. That is the cutest thing.
Well, it was us, Allie. We're buried in the sand. I think that's
I'm a little
the implication
late to that. But
no,
oh my God. It's us.
Colin. Well, and Colin very sweetly sent a follow-up email and was like, I hope that wasn't too creepy.
I love that. No. I don't think I was gonna say I don't think like y'all could creep us out, but
You could
don't
creep us
try.
out. Please don't try.
try.
Yeah, please. Serial killers, stalkers.
Need not apply.
Walk on. But no, Colin, it was great. It was very meta.
I love that. I love that. You were like, I think it's because it's us. I was like, what?
I think that's the, yes.
I
the
had like an M. Night
implication.
Shyamalan moment where I was like,
Twist! What? We were dead all along!
Colin,
Thank you.
thank you.
And listeners, I hope that story lulled you to sleep. And that will do us for this week's episode. All that remains is some haunted housekeeping. So listeners, if you'd like to find us online, you can do that at thecreepover.com. You can send us an email at thecreepoverpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at thecreepoverpodcast.
And please rate, review, and subscribe to us. Send us in your ghost paranormal stories.
Yes,
we
we
love
love
to hear
those.
it.
And yeah, just, you can just leave us a real quick review on Apple Podcasts if that's where you listen to us. I know a lot of people are on Spotify now. It seems like the cool place to be. But if you're on Apple Podcasts,
just go leave us a little nice
5-star
review.
A nice review. It would mean the world to us.
And we do raffles over there, so maybe we'll try that out again.
We're planning on shouting out our 5-star reviews on Instagram.
Yes.
So thank you to everyone who has reviewed, and that just helps more fans of spooky goodness find us online.
Yes.
Our artwork is by Blake Anderson, and our theme music is by Luca Francini.
And we'll see you next week.
And remember, when the going gets tough, don't be afraid to scream like a girl.
Fuck you, CIA!